up, Sauce Gang, and welcome back to the channel. Hot Sauce Beats are with a dope reaction for you because TierZoo just dropped a brand new video, and this is called our Rhinos OP. I'm beyond hyped for this because everyone loves rhinos. Like, how can you hate rhinos? They just look awesome, and I believe they gotta be OP. Their skin's armor, they got a massive horn that can just impale you. I'm beyond hyped to see how they fare against other animals, but before we jump into this, why don't you show TierZoo some love by subscribing to their channel, and if you enjoy my reaction, please smash that subscribe button because it greatly helps. But enough talking, let's get to reacting and roll that bomb-ass intro.
Hot Sauce Beats is finally here. Hot Sauce Beats is finally here. Eat, sleep, make beats. Eat, sleep, make beats.
Hot Sauce Beats! Woo, woo. Oh, rhinos are OP! Like, look at that! Boom, done. Dude, just stabbing holes in him, homie. Bruh! They're kind of scary.
The Rhinoceros is one of the most formidable builds in the game.
Though
They may not be the largest, fastest, or smartest builds in the current meta, they're undoubtedly top 5 when it comes to raw power and defense. Their most iconic feature, their massive, fearsome horn, has a wide variety of uses, both
Bro, look at Jesus! Woo!
in and out of combat.
Ow!
This, combined with the Rhino's other special abilities, make it seem like an overpowered top-tier
They're also
build.
really slow though,
But
aren't
Rhinos
they?
have some less obvious weaknesses that
They're
might
stupid.
change the equation a bit. In today's video, we'll go over all of the pros and cons
Are they
to
like the
determine.
dumbest animal?
So first, let's take an in-depth look at the Rhinoceros's unique traits and special abilities, starting of course with its horn. The Rhino's horn is one of the most powerful weapons, not just in the current meta, but in the entire history of the game. While not all of the variants of the Rhino build invest heavily into the horn skill tree, some rhinos, particularly the white rhino, have horns which can get up to 5 feet long. With the full force of a charging behemoth behind it, this horn can easily one-hit any player unfortunate enough to get caught at the other end. This length gives rhino players a massive forward threat range that other players can often underestimate, especially when factoring in the rhino's surprisingly high speed stat. With a top speed of roughly 30 miles per hour, they often catch careless players
Oh
off
my god,
guard with
that'd be terrifying, dude! To just be sitting there and see it running, like I would get out of that seat because it could just impale a hole right into your side through the door.
quickly that giant horn can get within spearing distance.
Wasted.
Now, oftentimes, one of the main weaknesses of this sort of playstyle, i.e. the kind of build with a large, powerful skull-mounted weapon, is that if an opponent is able to get inside of your optimal threat range, either by dodging your first attack and punishing the end leg, or by approaching from a difficult to defend angle, you may have little left in terms of defenses and might just be out of options to fight off the attack.
It's like they're
This
dancing.
is not the case with the Rhino, because the Rhino has the best defense stats of any build in its weight class. It has extremely thick skin, which is packed full of fibrous
45
material,
millimeter?
making it highly resistant to piercing damage. In addition to allowing rhinos to spar with each other without risking an instant game over, this also allows rhinos to shrug off attacks from literally any predator build, from the crushing bite of a hyena to the razor blade-like swipe of a tiger's claws. Rhinos aren't completely invincible, they're not bulletproof, and can't tank hits forever, but they've got a lot more room for mistakes than most builds. With all that being said, the Rhinoceros does have plenty of weaknesses, the first of which is their extremely poor eyesight. Rhinos have eyes on the side of their head, which is meant to give them a wide field of view at the cost of binocular vision, aka the ability to judge the distance to another player or object in 3D space. However, a rhino's vision is so poor that it can only detect basic shapes past roughly 10 yards, meaning they cannot detect other players if they remain motionless. And what you get is a rhino which can see all of the movement around itself, but is unable to quickly gauge whether or not that movement represents a threat. And so you'll commonly see rhino mains getting stressed out and startled by the simplest of things. And also rhinos which attack anything that moves on sight. This of course is highly exploitable. Any stealth-based build will have an easy time concealing its presence from a rhino until it wants to make a move. But this vulnerability is also easily exploited by intelligence-based builds,
Is this where we're talking about how dumb they are compared to super smart animals?
such as the human or the elephant. By tactically using items or team
blow water on you.
strategies, high intelligence builds can easily distract or kite a rhinoceros into doing exactly what they wanted.
Don't mess with the baby.
Whether it be to force a rhino to retreat from the fight that it could have won, or bait the rhinoceros into a trap. This lack of ability to discern friend from foe means the rhino's potential allies may not be willing to allow a rhino to join their party.
Was that its
since
own
the rhino
baby?
may accidentally target a party member with an attack if it feels threatened. Thankfully, there is one build which does make for a willing and effective team combo with the rhino, and that is the oxpecker. Oxpecker birds provide their allies with a low-grade parasite resistance buff, which is an important perk given how OP the tick build is in the current. But more importantly for the rhino, the oxpecker can essentially function as the allies' third eye, watching their party members back and alerting them of any approaching enemies.
Hey, you gotta run, bot. You gotta run.
And because the oxpeckers are so small and agile, they're not really at risk of being attacked by an overly aggressive rhino. Now, although rhinos can dish out some of the highest damage in the entire game to anything unlucky enough to be caught in front of their giant horns, another major weakness of theirs is their inability to threaten players approaching from behind them. Most herbivore builds, even those with equally impressive horns, make sure they spec into a powerful kick to ensure that they don't just automatically lose to any aggressor that manages to get behind them. A rhino's legs are not tall enough nor fast enough to threaten a powerful kick, and so when a rhino gets surrounded, its only option is to tank quite a few hits. Now, of course, their thick armor does immensely help.
Dude, look at that, bro. That is some armor.
Help in this situation. But no armor in this game is completely impervious, and given enough time, a persistent predator can still deal damage, even to a heavily armored rhinoceros. This weakness is made worse by the fact that the rhino, like all mammals, has a weak point on its hindquarters, called the perineum. Taking damage to this area can inflict a serious blood loss debuff, which can be enough to bring down even the rhino. Normally, it's the job of a player's teammates to guard their backside like this. But given the rhino's propensity for friendly fire, they can't always count on having allies that are willing to help. Unfortunately, as helpful as the oxpecker birds are, they aren't likely to try and challenge a lion in the middle of an ambush. So there's definitely quite a few downsides that come with playing this powerhouse of a build. There's also some variation within the rhino faction, allowing for players to optimize for their desired playstyle. If you just want to max out on your attack damage, you'll want to play as the white rhino, which sports the most powerful horn and largest size. If you care more about mobility and armor, you can opt for the Indian rhino, which is smaller and only has a single horn, but has better mobility both on land and in the water, and is also the more heavily armored of the two. Next, let's talk about individual matchups. First, big cats. Rhinos have essentially nothing to fear from the Felid build. Sharp as their claws might be, they simply aren't powerful enough to penetrate a rhino's armor. Big cats kill with a strangling bite to the throat, and there's basically zero chance of this attack strategy working against a rhino.
They just
especially
watch, like,
seeing
okay,
as any
rhinos,
attempt at this would
get
put
outta
them
here.
right in range of the rhino's primary attack. Next, elephants. Rhinos are one of the few builds which actually can genuinely threaten serious damage against an elephant. Elephants don't have anywhere near as much armor as a rhino, so even a direct 1v1, the rhino's horn is likely to outdamage the elephant's tusks, if the rhino can manage to get within range. Unfortunately, the elephant has two major advantages over the rhino. The first is its range. The elephant's tusks outrange the rhino's horn, so even though the elephant's DPS is lower than the rhino's, the elephant's tusks can push the rhino out of range and prevent it from being able to put its horn to work.
Dude, these are
the second
so
advantage
violent.
is its intelligence. Elephants are especially adept at exploiting the rhino's lower intelligence and poor eyesight. By throwing objects towards a rhino, elephants can easily induce the frightened status condition in a rhino, causing the rhino to forfeit a fight it potentially could have.
Oh, the elephant's like, I'm just gonna play fetch and scare it. Hey, look at, it's like when you see in a scary movie where they throw something over there and it alerts the intruder, you know, in the opposite direction.
Stood a solid chance in had it held its ground. To be fair, it's not the worst indictment to have a losing matchup against an elephant. Hardly anything has a favorable matchup against them. But it's unfortunate that if the rhino didn't have these weaknesses, it actually would have a solid matchup against the elephant despite the size difference. Next, the hippopotamus. Hippos and rhinos are very similar in terms of their base stats. They're very similar in size, roughly equivalent in their base movement speed, and each can dish out incredible damage. The hippo has higher base HP, but significantly less armor. This is by far the most even
Did you see all those scratches and the birds just feeding in there?
matchup on this list. and a confrontation can easily go either way. The Rhino's susceptibility to intimidation does cause it to sometimes back down from fights it probably could win, but there are also plenty of cases of overly aggressive hippos getting hard punished for approaching too carelessly. Hyenas. As mentioned before, although the Rhino does have excellent armor, the only predator that even realistically has a shot at inflicting damage to them would be the hyena, which packs one of the strongest bite forces of anything a Rhino could ever encounter, second only to the crocodile.
Woo!
It's still extremely rare for a pack of hyenas to bring down a Rhino, but by persistently chipping away at the Rhino's rear weak point, it can happen. The Rhino has a solid matchup spread, but despite all of their incredible advantages, still end up taking a lot more L's than they should due to their heavily exploitable weaknesses. Although they're able to tank a lot of hits as an adult, their low intelligence stat allows enemy players to kite protective parents away from the low-level Rhinos they were guarding, whether that be through distraction, intimidation.
We saw that earlier, and I think a lot of predators, that's what they do, right? They attack the younger ones because they know, they're not fully grown, they're, easier to get. And if they can like scare the group away, usually some of the younger ones trail towards the back and they can get them out, but it makes you sad.
Or team tactics. And with a respawn time of almost a year and a half, every defeat hits the Rhino player base exceptionally hard. The Rhino build is quite powerful, but I actually think it's a bit over-invested in its combat stats at the cost of its own efficiency. This is likely because the Rhino build was originally meant for much colder climates, where larger size was also simply an efficient design choice to provide the player with a cold resistance buff. During the Ice Age, the ancient variants of the Rhino, such as the woolly rhinoceros, absolutely needed this extra bulk in order to fight off powerful threats like the short-faced bear and cave hyena. But with the largest threat to rhinos in the modern day being the tiger, rhinos don't really need this much physical force to be competitively viable. There also used to be a lot more variety to the rhinoceros player base. Paraceratherium was the largest terrestrial mammal build ever seen in the game, and essentially functioned as a mammalian sauropod. And yet for some reason, the tall grazer niche is dominated by the giraffe instead of a variant of the rhinoceros, even though a Paraceratherium could easily win a 1v1 against the giraffe. This may be a bit controversial, but taking into account their many weaknesses and seeing how out of place they are in the current meta compared to the Ice Age, I'm going to place the rhinoceros into D tier. Low intelligence in particular leaves the Rhino helpless in the face of certain strategies. However, intelligence is something that can be leveled up with the right sort of training. In today's meta, abilities like coding, math, and data science are extremely useful. They're tough to learn unless you got a free and easy course designed to intuitively guide you through difficult concepts. That's precisely
let me bring you in, fam. Let's go. I don't see rhinos getting into math anytime soon, but TierZoo, I love this video. Again, I think most everybody is a fan of rhinos. They just, I don't know. I think they definitely are like one of the closer animals to dinosaurs in resemblance and just how they look. So I think we all like kind of like them for that reason. That's stupid. I don't, you know what I'm saying. And I don't think anyone can hate rhinos. They're just so likable. So I'm really glad he did this, and I definitely would have thought it would have ranked higher up on the tier list, but I do get it. Intelligence can get you really far, especially compared to some of the other stats. So, dude, that 30 to 40 miles an hour coming at you with that horn, bruh, that would be absolutely terrifying. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. Show TierZoo some love by subscribing to their channel. If you enjoy my reaction, please help support the channel by smashing that subscribe and like button. It's absolutely free and it greatly helps out the channel. Enjoy your weekend, and remember, it's eat, sleep, and make beats, and as usual, be kind of one another. That's all I got. Boom, I'm out. Got nothing but love for the Sauce Gang.